Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sean and Lina Talking Kings. Sean Cunningham on Twitter, L Washington TV on Twitter. The NBA is back. Kings basketball is back. We got our first taste of what it's like to see this team, what we have of it available in Orlando, playing in a silent arena with no fans. We heard from Luke Walton. We heard from Buddy Hield. We heard from Daquan Jeffries after the game, but it was a losing effort against the Miami Heat. The Kings will next face the Milwaukee Bucks on Saturday, but their first test and their first, challenge as they look ahead to this slate of 8 guaranteed games, still in the hunt for that 8th seed with 3.5 games out of that final spot in the West. But Sean, your takeaways from this first appearance in 4 months of this team on a competitive basketball court?
I mean, I guess it felt like basketball, and that's what I think is the thing we were all hoping that it would. Because even though it was a scrimmage and it didn't count, and you're going to have 2 more of these, the next one coming up on Saturday against Milwaukee, I think the thing that we were just all hoping is that it was going to feel like basketball. Obviously, it looked a little different. Obviously, you're not hearing as much as maybe I was hoping we would hear. But, to see this team who hasn't played together in 4 months all of a sudden get thrown back into a training camp that's a little more than a week and have to play a game again and hope to be successful in a playoff race is going to be a little bit difficult. And obviously it's sloppy. And Luke Walton said that there were things that stood out to him that were both positives and negatives, and they're going to go over all the film. But to us, I mean, it looked like basketball. It actually looked a lot like the Kings that we're used to. Big hole early on, battle back, ultimately come up short, but they went to everybody within the rotation that was available to them, and I think we could probably expect to see that again on Saturday.
And for those just joining the program, let's just recap what it's been like for the Kings just making it to this moment where they were able to tip off a game in Orlando, right? So they had Jabari Parker, Alex Len come forward testing positive for COVID-19 in June. Then we can suffice it, he did not confirm it himself until we spoke with him, but Buddy Hield, a 3rd player testing positive. We know that Harrison Barnes is the 4th player to test positive, and he is still in Sacramento following NBA protocol. So they're hoping to get him back and have him available. But as we heard from Luke Walton, they're preparing as if he won't be available. And that's really all you can do at this point as you look ahead to Saturday and, again, the regular season tipping off next week. But even since we last saw these wonderful people, 2 major injuries to the Kings players. I would say that have at least sidelined De'Aaron Fox for some time. He is recovering from a sprained left ankle, but as we've learned today, he's back in non-contact basketball activities. They're hoping to have him back by next week, but we also learned today that Marvin Bagley III has left Orlando after it was confirmed by an MRI that he suffered a lateral foot sprain in his right foot. Not the same foot he was dealing with an injury previously, but it's like the hits keep on coming to this team, and we look at the 21 other teams that are with them in Orlando. I can't think of another one that's been impacted this sufficiently. And then you have Marvin Bagley in the 2nd year of his NBA career, and again having to deal with this injury that's held him out for the remainder of the season. He was so excited to get back. We talked to him, and he looked good. He looked like he put on a significant amount of weight, and this was his opportunity to really show what he's got and that he can stay healthy. And unfortunately, that's not the case. We heard from Buddy saying, looking to us as the media, right, who are talking about Marvin's injuries, but I think that it's the overall conversation, I think, on social media among the fans maybe that have led to maybe some added frustration of this young player having to deal with this. It's another guy that's going to be gone, but we're hoping to see De'Aaron Fox next week. Your just takeaway from what Marvin Bagley's had to overcome and deal with in this short amount of time in his NBA career.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And we'll be able to speak a little bit with this with Jason Jones, the Athletic. He's going to join us here in a few minutes. Our good friend and colleague who covers the team with us. But yeah, look, Marvin has been snake bitten by injuries this year. I don't think it's fair to say he's injury prone. These are all different injuries. These are all just bad luck. The guy takes care of his body. I know a lot of people are all of a sudden trying to bring up Puma, and maybe there's a connection there with some of the lower extremities, but let's not forget the guy suffered a fractured thumb in his in the season opener in Phoenix, where you were at, Lina. And last year he wore Pumas as well. So yeah, he had an injury that happened right around the December-January portion of the season, and the two stretches that he had wasn't very good last year for the team, because he was such a pivotal member, somebody that was really, really helpful in their biggest success. And when the team wasn't good, it was when Marvin was hurt. So yeah, that brought on expectations going into the second year under a new head coach, and just right out of the gate, he's hurt. So it's a setback. It's a huge setback, and it's got to be a mental thing to overcome for him. He's human. He sees all the stuff on social media. He sees all the media journalists who are hoping to see more from him. But look, Michael Jordan had an injury-plagued second year. He came back from a broken leg and helped a playoff push, and he only played, I believe, in 18 games, if I remember right. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm not trying to compare Marvin to Michael Jordan, but like Steph Curry dealt with injuries early on in his career as well. So I think people just need to pump the brakes. I think that, it's just unfortunate for someone like Marvin, because obviously there were talented players taken around him: DeAndre Ayton, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, who obviously gets the biggest star power and most attention from all the fans. And just got to let that go. I mean, you can hold that against Vlade if you choose, but it's not Marvin's fault. He's here. He's trying to make the best of it. And he's a very dynamic player when he's in the rotation. But that being said, Lina, this team has shown that they've been able to play well without Marvin. And so with the emergence of people like Rashaan Holmes and Alex Len, who have played well, obviously the two of them weren't available tonight in the scrimmage against Miami, but they factor in to play well in roles once this eight game tournament starts, as Buddy Hield likes to call it, the NBA restart on July 31st. So we've seen Harrison Barnes play center. We've seen Jabari Parker, who they picked up at mid-season, battle a shoulder injury, and all of a sudden he's trying to work his way back even after a bout with coronavirus himself. He might be in the mix. This could open up opportunity for him. So I think for Marvin, it's terrible. I understand where even Buddy is coming from. Buddy also realizes we have a job to do. But yeah, I can't imagine. I can't help but feel for Marvin. It's got to be tough. I think he made the right choice of getting him out of the bubble. There's no reason really for him to be there. He's going to get better treatment in Sacramento, and just start rehab and look forward to next season, which will happen rather quickly once this season's completed.
Yes, and of course, we wish Marvin a speedy recovery, and we look forward to seeing him back healthy. You mentioned Rashaan Holmes. We got to hear from him for the first time today, and it was actually Jason Jones of The Athletic who got it out of him. What flavor chicken wings he risked it all for when he stepped outside the property line for NBA protocol inside the bubble. So we learned today that it was chicken wings that tempted or at least brought Rashaan over a line that he was unaware, it was unmarked. Who knows what it actually looks like there in Orlando? As we heard Luke Walton say, it's very easy to not know where the borders are, at least when you were first getting acclimated there last week. He almost stepped outside of the line on his first day, but it's the lemon pepper that I get. I get it.
And barbecue.
I would risk a lot of things for some lemon pepper wings and barbecue as well. So at least we know that he's on the right side of history when it comes to wing flavors. But we're glad to see Rashaan back. He was also battling a shoulder injury, significant shoulder injury that we learned to be a labrum tear later in the season in about early March. So he's had 4 months to recover and get better. And I mean, it was great to see him at least in good spirits with everything that's been going on. But we are we are actually being joined now by the man who broke the news about the lemon pepper wings, Jason Jones of The Athletic, formerly of the Sacramento Bee. Jason, what's going on with your Zoom background? You don't want to show us.
I'm still hanging out with Mike. To me that was the funniest thing of the whole shutdown was just Mike looking at the thing like,
yeah.
I can't get enough of that look. I just can't. It's the funniest thing. I don't think Mike ever meant to be this, but he's like the most memeable, probably legend ever. Just some of the faces he makes. Yeah, I'm just like, and he's probably making that face now, realizing the Pistons are going to have his logo on their jerseys now.
How about that? He's got to be, they use the expression rolling over in his grave. Obviously, he's still alive. So he can't, he's got to hate that. And, it's funny because what we so much enjoyed were these virtual, I haven't used my famous virtual backgrounds for these shows. But we were using them before the Kings took off to Orlando because, let's face it, we're in quarantine and we're bored. Like these Zoom meetings suck. So it gives us a way to add something, some personalities, a moment of lightness. This is sports after all. And
yeah.
Jason, you had as much fun as I did with it, and even Lina to that regard. Those moments. I got shouted out by Harrison Barnes. We were changing them up daily. That they're fun. It's something that's obviously missing from the NBA's version in the bubble.
Yeah, we hadn't seen each other in months, so we're like, let's do something.
Let's just make it known that Harrison Barnes didn't necessarily shout you out. He called you out because you were doing the most with your Rihanna background. And not to say we obviously stand Rihanna here, but
Harrison, first off, I expected maybe the beard to look a little bit different. Does it feel, how's that going with the whole playoff beard and going through quarantine?
First of all, Sean, you're doing a lot with that background right now.
Oh, I know.
But nah, the beard is good. I think it's plateaued a little bit.
That's just that specific day was Sean with the Rihanna background, James Ham with the chicken and waffles, just an unknown chicken and waffles background, Jason with the Michael Jordan, Matt George had Joe Exotic of Tiger King fame. Gosh, I can't even remember.
I think Jason Anderson had Napoleon Dynamite.
Jason Anderson had Napoleon Dynamite, Kip and LaFonda's wedding, which was a deep cut for people.
We had clearly had nothing to do for too long, so we were just going through like, okay, well, let me try something.
I think Harrison recognized quality is what he did. That's what I look at it.
No, well, he's a married man, so he's probably like, wow, you can't be like, whoa. He's like, oh, wow, you're really doing a lot, Sean. Yeah, you're doing a lot. Because you don't want to have that conversation. So, oh, really? That's what you're going to do? You're going to do that on the Zoom for everyone to hear?
Boy, we were just right even before you joined us, Jason. We were talking about Marvin and obviously the scrimmage that happened tonight too with Miami. But I thought what Buddy said about Marvin directed towards the media was a little odd. I think a lot of it, I think he wanted some fans to hear that as well.
It'd be really good too. Y'all want to know if y'all can start reporting about that because he's a kid and he's going through stuff right now and he's trying to get his mind right. And so the more the media talks about it, just messes his heads up because he's trying to go out there and prove himself to everybody. So the more everybody can relax off the topic and let him get his body right and his mind right, and then when he comes back, he dominate. Then you all can, say Marvin is doing good. But I see as a young kid, he's going through a lot right now, and he's trying to mentally get over this hump. But he will get over this hump for sure.
I got to think you're right there with me, just really kind of feeling bad for him with the expectations that had kind of come with him into this season, and I think you'll probably agree that getting him out of the bubble is probably the right thing.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any reason for him to be there. It's tough enough what he's gone through this season. And I think I mentioned on Twitter, he didn't get hurt doing anything crazy. He wasn't out, riding a dirt bike. He didn't punch a glass window. He got his thumb broken in the first game, and then, he had problems with his feet this year. Just things that happened in basketball. And the Kings did leave some, people back, some strength type people back in Sacramento. You couldn't bring everyone. So if he's going to be in the boot for how many weeks, what's the purpose of having him just sit there in the boot watching practice every day when he can get back home, at least see his family, and maybe get away from it. I can't imagine mentally you would feel good just sitting there every day watching everyone play and you can't.
Yeah, and that seems to have been kind of the bulk of his NBA career so far, is watching his teammates play basketball. Even in his first year in the league, he dealt with injuries, and then there was the debate of whether or not he fits in the starting lineup, which I know can take a mental toll on any star basketball player, especially when you have such high expectations for yourself. But we do have some positive, I guess, news with De'Aaron Fox, who we know to be a quick healer, already getting back into some kind of practice activities, non-contact, of course, but they expect to have him back, next Thursday when the season tips off again.
Yeah, whenever their game's on the 31st, so they expect him to be good to go. And the fact that he was running around on Tuesday, you said, okay, he'll be all right, and he's shown already whenever you think it could be the worst, he's like, all right, I'll be back, don't worry about me. I mean, De'Aaron's he's much tougher than he gets credit for. I mean, I know he's a real slender guy. People maybe look at him and think that, remember also his rookie year, he had the little knick-knack injuries here and there, but he played 81 to 82 the next year, and it took basically, a really bad sprain to take him out this year. So I'm not surprised that he'd be back. And really, that's the guy they have to have. I mean, Marvin's talented, but they've played most of the year without Marvin. So I don't think it's as big of an adjustment as if you lose De'Aaron. So if they get De'Aaron back, which they will, I think that they got to like their chances down there having him, healthy and good to go.
I don't know how you guys felt, but excuse me. Today was the first day that he was going to be that he could have been reevaluated in that 7 to 10 day window. And like Jason mentioned, it wasn't even just Tuesday. We saw him doing work and getting shots up. And to that point, like, it was a very odd medical update because they didn't tell us anything we didn't already know. It didn't say that obviously he was healed and he wasn't cleared for contact yet. But he had already been doing the non-contact stuff, getting the shots up. I don't know what the next level of progression is for him, but it's not going to surprise me if all of a sudden we see him in one of these scrimmages. Maybe not Saturday, but certainly by the time Monday rolls around, if they're thinking that he could be good to go by the opener, I got to think that they might want him at least for one of those scrimmages, and maybe that's Monday.
Yeah, even if you just get him in there for a little bit and get him out. Yeah, because when I saw the news, I'm like, well, didn't they just say yesterday that he was running and he was doing stuff and they pushed him pretty hard? I was like, okay, I guess they just had to make sure that, because it had been a week, they'd let us know that it'd been a week and here's where he is. But yeah, it wasn't surprising. If he played a little bit on Monday, it wouldn't shock me, just because he hates watching, he hates sitting out. He's a competitor. He really wants to play if he's healthy. So. And it couldn't hurt to get him out there at least for 10 minutes, let him run around for a little bit with the guys, and then build up for San Antonio.
Yeah, and this, I mean, let's face it, De'Aaron is the guy that makes this team go, and if they want a chance against this slate of teams who, as Sean has mentioned, they're 3-9 against in the regular season. I mean, how do you see this stretch of 8 games going, Jason? You've covered this team for a long time, and you know these guys pretty well. What is your anticipation come July 31st?
It's tough to figure out because you don't know what New Orleans is going to look like, and it just feels like everyone wants New Orleans there, but Zion's not back, and people will say, well, it's not that big of a deal. Zion's only played in 20 games. It's not like Zion's this grizzled vet, and I think they got to get off to a good start. I mean, the Spurs, this isn't the Spurs. There's no Tim Duncan on that team on the court. Brooklyn, I don't even know if Brooklyn knows who's on their team. So, I mean, you look at, Orlando. I mean, those are games they've got to get off to a good start. If they get off to a good start, they've got a chance. But if they stumble out, and then you got to play Dallas, and then you got to play the Rockets, by the time you get to the Laker game, which may not mean anything for the Lakers, it may not matter. So you've got to start off well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And to me, it's we all know it's an uphill battle for the playoffs. Even if they're within that the three games of the 8th seed and to force that play-in tournament, that's going to be a very unlikely scenario. But like Jason said, I mean, you got to beat New Orleans twice in that I think you got to beat them twice in order to be in that mix. You're 3.5 now with two other teams in Portland and New Orleans. They're all right there. You're not going to win the percentages, so you got to beat these teams. And I just feel like even if you don't get to that spot, even a play-in tournament to catch Memphis, I still feel like this tournament is going to be enough of a playoff taste. Granted, it's not a series of games against the same opponent, but I think this is going to be a really good experience for this team.
Yeah, you look at anybody drafted by the Kings, they've never had 8 games left and said, okay, we can still do anything with these 8 games. So it's got to be a bit. I think it's a great thing for them just to be in pressure situations this late in the year.
Yeah, and this is, of course, a great opportunity for the two-way players like Daquan Jeffries, Kyle Guy, and some of these young guys to get some meaningful minutes, Justin James as well. It almost felt like a summer league game, obviously without fans. It did feel and sound a little different, but I mean, in terms of the product on the court, it did not feel very off the mark, I should say. I mean, first NBA game without fans. I watched the basketball tournament, so I was already kind of used to what it was like going to be nearly silent during these games. But it sounds like most of these guys are kind of just focused on the task at hand, and it can almost be an advantage at some points during the contest to be able to hear a little bit better. Your guys' take on just the experience, what it was like just watching from the comfort of your home for the first time, I'm sure, in a long time for both of you guys, watching a Kings basketball game on your couch. Your thoughts on just kind of this whole setup that we're going to be enjoying for the next couple weeks or months?
Go ahead,
It's
Jay.
going to be weird. I mean, I've never gone this long without being around them. You know, even if I'm not on the road, it's not like it's going to. I mean, we've been talking to them for about a month, and we haven't actually been around them at all. So that's just weird. But I think it's kind of, you're kind of getting used to it. You realize that, hey, we're all going to get on the same media stuff. Everything's kind of the same. Get your questions in on Zoom. So I mean, it's probably the first time I could ever like watch the game, make my kids dinner during make the plates at halftime and get back. There's no pregame or like, oh, the game's at 5. I got to be in front of the TV at 5. It's no like get to the arena at 3. So I mean that's different. But I think in terms of watching it, it was like watching a game. It's a summer league game like at Cox, where it looks like it's a smaller place. You don't see a lot of people maybe in some of those games in summer league. So those were probably the nicest summer league jerseys you'll ever see, though. But it was like it did feel like, plus it's July. It feels like we should be in Vegas right now.
I know I miss it. I mean, to that point too about the atmosphere, it was weird. It was interesting hearing Luke after the game because he almost sounded like he was equating it to the way a home crowd would be at a football game. When the offense is working, you're quiet, and when you're on defense, you're boisterous and loud to get, so that you can just create chaos for the other team. I thought it was interesting he mentioned that because with their ability to hear everything, I know on the broadcast, I think you guys were watching the same feed I was with G-Man and Doug. You couldn't really hear much of what was being on the crowd on the court. I think that might change a little bit as these broadcasts continue, maybe especially when TNT and ESPN and ABC takes over. I think we might see a little bit more crowd or at least ambiance within the arena. But hearing the players and especially Luke talking about using some of that to the advantage of trying to be quiet on offense, but trying to communicate more. And he made the point, Jason, which was the more communicative team is going to have more success on the floor, especially on the defensive end.
The Kings have had that problem in the past of not talking on defense. So this is almost like a drill, like, hey, make sure Luke can hear you. So maybe you take it like that, and then that's when you need to get, he also made the point that teams with veteran point guards, a team like, a guy like a Chris Paul, guys like that who were used to, doing a little slide thing to get the play out. Those guys are going to have an advantage. They've done it for years, and maybe it's why the Kings need to run. don't worry about calling plays, just run and don't worry about that part of it. And maybe you favor, you can help yourself, you can catch teams off guard.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Luke say that it almost felt like they could create their own momentum just by communicating with each other on the floor, because that was the only sound in the arena. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what it was probably like to sit there. I mean, obviously, from our perspective, we're hearing people talk in G-Man and Doug. Great to hear Gary Gerald now doing the play-by-play on the TV side, but a sound for sore ears just to hear some sneakers screeching on the hardwood and people talking basketball. But I mean, imagine just how silent it is in the arena without the sound of people inside talking about it, because they're over in the Golden One Center doing these broadcasts and calling the game. So I found that very interesting, that I'm sure that they're not the only duo that's going to be doing that, and just the logistics that play into that, getting this all together on the broadcast side.
Yeah, I think also to that point, like we've seen that because they're on the NBC Sports Bay Area, and we've seen the A's and the Giants when they're at their home venues, they're able to call from the stadium. So the A's will stay the entire time. Their broadcast crew will stay at the Coliseum even when the team is on the road. So when the A's were just across the bay at Oracle Park playing the Giants, their crew is in Oakland at the Coliseum calling the games. Such will be the case for the broadcast crew, and I think that's kind of a neat little setup, considering that the Kings broadcast for the most part is on NBC Sports Bay Area.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic, definitely. I was wondering, like, how are they going to be in a studio than to see them actually in the arena? It's like, oh, that's different. I've never seen them. It's lights around, but there's no one in there, so. That's going to be a unique thing, I think. Then because when TNT and those guys take over, they'll probably. I think what's going to be interesting is that how do the players on the bench kind of make their presence felt? Because the way they're seated, it looked like Kyle Guy was like in the back row of a movie. I mean, he was like far back or whatever. I'm like, how do you get Guy? How do those guys get engaged? I don't know, but. That might be the thing. Maybe that's where you need a guy like a Bazemore when he's not in the game, or maybe like a Harry. Maybe you miss Frank Mason now. You need somebody dancing over there. I don't know how you do it, but it's going to be. It was just weird seeing how they were all spaced out, and the coaches are like back, and then the players are behind them, and there's none of that going to be quick. Hey, grab a guy and get in the game. He's go down the steps to get into the game. So this is going to be a lot of new things.
Yeah, it was cool too. And to that point, like, sorry, Lina, but like the only time you really saw them all together, because obviously in the timeout, they got the timeout chairs like college does. So they bring them out, everyone sits down in their space. But the only time you really saw them collectively as a group, aside from when they were playing, was during the intros. When they had the intros, the guys came out as if they were being introduced and they huddled up and bounced around. That was really the only time they got to show any personality on the court.
Yeah, you mentioned Frank Mason. The Liddy committee is still alive and well, at least in the Kings organization. But I mean, we saw Rashaan Holmes getting hyped for a bogey three in the back corner of the back row of the benches that they had to separate each other. It is also worth noting that Stacey Ogman and Lindsey Harding, two members of the coaching staff, did not make the trip. So that was confirmed on the broadcast. But yeah, I mean, it was a very different dynamic, different to watch, but I think that once these guys settle in and that they understand what task at hand is and the challenge that lies ahead, I don't think the lack of fans or even being able to fist bump each other, which they still did. I mean, they didn't do maybe as intimately the handshakes and the jersey exchange at the end, but even Luke Walton joked about it, like we didn't want to have an awkward moment where are we doing daps? Are we doing shoulders? Are we doing elbows? Are we doing handshakes? Whatever we're doing to make sure that everyone's on the same page with that. But all these little things that we're so used to that have been second nature for these guys for as long as they've been playing the game, it's going to be an adjustment. It's a historic moment, but so far it seems like everything's working. No positive tests since everyone's arrived in the bubble. Some players have left for various personal and family emergencies, but as far as what's going on at the Disney World Resort, seems like everything's going according to plan.
Yeah, and I think that's a positive. I mean, you mentioned no tests, but they're also having fun. And I know it's only been maybe 2 weeks, if you want to call it that. But as Jason has in The Athletic right now, he's got a great Q&A with Buddy Hield. And Buddy's taken up fishing. Even though he's an island kid, he doesn't sound like fishing is all that native to him, even though he was kind of making fun of it on social media, saying what a great angler and fisherman he is.
So I throw them back inside, and I shall eat them. Y'all want them? I do this, dog. I do this. Real fisherman. You see me? Fisherman, dog. Real McCoy. You see me? I do this.
I mean, you see guys playing golf and fishing, and, you know, I think Matisse Thybulle from the Sixers, the rookie over there, has put together these documentary series. If no one's seen them, you have to check them out. Unbelievable. He's edited and shot, and he hosts his own little docu-series on this, and it's been fantastic. But Jason, that Q&A with Buddy was fantastic, and the fishing and the lack of food that he wishes that he had, but also keeping things in perspective was a really interesting insight.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. He's like, yeah, I went out there to go fish. It was too hot. So, and I like that guys are saying that it's Alex who's dragging them out there to go fishing. Like, I think Corey said this morning that, yeah, Alex got me. I'm like, so I guess he's like the fishing coordinator. You see a picture of Lade sitting out there. It's like, I find it hilarious. Bazemore ordering the skillet for the room and making pancakes and getting sausage and cooking in his room. I mean, I think what it's really going to do too is that because of social media, you're seeing a different side of these guys that you never would see because they're bored and they're like the rest of us. They're like, okay, I got my phone. Let me see what I can do with this. So yeah, Buddy was hilarious. Just the fact that he's jealous that Corey can see the ocean from his room and he can't. He can see trees. I mean, it was just it was a fun, typical like buddy conversation. It was just like, well, when he went into the thing about the food and you're thankful, but hey, I'm used to having seasoning, and you know, for all this money they couldn't put seasoning in the food. I was just, it was gonna be a lot of fun stories that come out like that. I think it's because guys are playing ping pong and Rashaan Holmes
beer
watching
chugging. We've got beer chugging, which should become a sport down there. There should be a league down there now.
There's going to be so many crazy things I think that come out of this like that. Just how they decorated Dame's door for his birthday, and this is going to. I think there's going to be a lot of funny things coming out of here. Baze said he's like working on this, his educational efforts in North Carolina, because now people are seeing. I've told people all the time that you get some of your best sleep and your best work done on the road. And now these guys are like, yeah, I think guys are saying they've never had this much peace. It sucks because you're not by your family, but it's like, hey, after practice, I can't go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, imagine that.
I found that interesting that Ken Bazemore is the one who described it that way, is that I've never felt so free, even though I'm sequestered and I have all these rules and I have all these things that track this and that and the other about me, but he's had the time afforded to him to sit and read or listen to podcasts or focus on his projects back home. So I think that it's really great that you see guys like that being able to explore and take a breather in some way. Obviously, they know that the stakes are high for what they're working for and what they're trying to do in Orlando, but the way that they're kind of looking at some kind of silver lining and taking, as they call, lemons and making lemonade out of it, it's great to see that. And we've heard from Luke Walton multiple times that they're keeping the same positive attitude, even though all of these things have happened to their teammates and to their organization, in the recent weeks with all of these different things coming up. But, to hear guys say that it's not as bad as people are making it, and they're making the most of their time on the golf course, on the fishing boats, or in their room has been pretty interesting.
And no ticket requested games, so they're gonna love that. No, hey, I've got to get 40 tickets for tonight's game. Nobody's getting a ticket, so they're gonna like that part too.
But they might get that request from someone who maybe the people who aren't, maybe the ones that are, but those, hey, you're taking me to the bubble, right?
Those stories have been already surfacing.
And no Mo Bamba moments here.
They're opening up the bubble as long as things go well to family members next month, and Who knows what that looks like? I do want to clean up one thing. Jason mentioned Alex getting him into fishing. That's not to be confused with Alex Len, somebody who's about 2 feet shorter in the media relations department. Alex Sigwa, big fisherman, and it's hilarious because I saw him. If you see Buddy's Instagram post, when he's holding up the fish, you can actually see Alex in the background. And I was like, man, I know Alex got him out there to go fishing, and he's had to have been shaking his head over Buddy getting so excited over this little fish.
Well, and Corey was like, Alex got him out there too, and that's why he said he caught the biggest fish so far. He doesn't care what anyone says. He has to have caught the biggest one. So
he better post pictures because I mean that's the fish. That's what fishermen say. If the one that got away, and they always boast about the one that there. I'm not a fisherman, but they always want to say, "Hey, picture, it didn't happen."
Mm-hmm. Well, they're all fishermen now.
Yeah, and Corey's evidently, according to Bogey, Corey's the captain. He's the one driving boats around that pond, and he's like, I don't even know if he's got a license, but they're driving boats around. This is just nuts, and I think it's good to see in the first 2 weeks, but I wonder if it gets stale. You know what I mean? Because, 2 weeks, it's kind of cool. You've got things that are at your disposal. What's it look like a month from now?
Oh man, I can't even imagine. I mean, by then they'll probably have the NBA lockdown barber in full effect, and I guess they'll have those little parties or whatever they're going to have down there for them. I mean, and then as it goes along, there'll be fewer and fewer people there. By the end you'll have 2 teams. So by then, I think by then you'll be so focused on trying to win, it'll be okay maybe. But imagine being there and you lose your first 3 or 4 games. And you're like, okay, we're done. Oh, we got another week here. We could see some very brutal tanking basketball at that point.
Well, time will tell. I mean, I hope that the guys who are still on teams that have a fighting chance will still give their 100% to this whole effort, because Lord knows it's taken a lot for the NBA to pull this off. And so far, it's been going off without a hitch, save obviously Rashaan Holmes crossing the line for some chicken wings. But, you live and you learn. He got that out of the way. His 10-day quarantine is over, so he will be back in action for the Kings sooner than later. He's just going through protocol. We will keep everyone updated on Harrison Barnes's status with the team. Again, he's still in Sacramento. But Jason, I asked Sean this last week, point blank. Your thoughts? Does the team make this playoff push? Do they earn the 8th seed, or is it another season of waiting in Sacramento?
I mean, right now it's going to be a season of waiting. No Harrison. We don't know when Harrison's going to get there. It just seems like what can go wrong will go wrong. Even guys like Alec, are you going to be 100% once the games get going? And with 8 games, you don't have time to kind of just go, oh, we had a couple of bad games in a row. We got time. You got to come out ready to go. And I just wonder if they're going to struggle with that just because of the health stuff. So.
Yeah, and to your point, Jason, too, about Harrison Barnes, that's a little bit, I don't want to say surprising, because, look, the virus is so unpredictable, as we all know, and it's ultimately what's in control when somebody is obviously trying to go through protocol and get to ultimately rejoin, and we've seen success stories so far. But Luke keeps saying that we progress as if we may not have Harrison after all, that maybe he doesn't join us in the bubble. And I don't know if that's just, totally hedging the bet a little bit, because, look, a week from Friday, this thing gets going. But it would be surprising to me if he's not able to pass protocol by then. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. To me, I almost wonder, and I know these are private matters. Luckily, Harrison was able to make it public that he had tested positive. But I wonder if there is apprehension on his end, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to speak to him about that.
I think that's fair. I mean, and how Alex Len in this case pointed out, 24 straight days. People forget he tested positive the same time Buddy did. Buddy's there way before Alex. Alex just got there, and Buddy's been there for now, relatively speaking, for a little bit. So you just don't know exactly when Harrison's going to be okay. And then once the longer this goes, the longer it'll take for him to get ready to play. Because I know they don't want him exercising right now. So even if he say we're able to leave Friday, you're looking at him probably not playing that first game, maybe the first couple of games. I know Lucas said he's so important that they're willing to let him miss a game or two. That means they can have him down the stretch, but you go 0-2, it may be too late. So if it's looking like he can't play the whole time, maybe he does stay home, but they can't replace him now. So they kind of have to wait it out and try to get him down there.
Yeah, and I wonder if that means that there's opportunity for even Jabari Parker. We saw him in the scrimmage. Luke has talked a little bit about him. I mean, when he first came to town, he had the shoulder injury. I mean, he was just out of the rotation. It wasn't an option. Now opportunities open up, and maybe Jabari's part of that plan.
I think at this point. Go ahead, Lina.
I was just going to say, we know that Luke Walton's going to have to get creative with some of these lineups with who's available, and we've already seen the injury bug rear its ugly head in Orlando in the 10 days or 2 weeks now that they've been there. But Jason, your final thoughts on just what the Kings are up against?
All hands on deck. Expect the unexpected, whatever it takes. You got to play a super small lineup, whatever you got to do. I mean, this is all about desperation and trying to get in. So you do whatever you have to do to get in. So I don't know what we're going to see, but I know it'll be something we probably haven't seen before.
Well, hopefully we will be seeing more of Jason Jones on this Kings conversation with me and Sean. You can follow him on Twitter at Mr._Jason Jones. Again, he is with The Athletic, so subscribe if you haven't. I'm sure they got some deals coming up, maybe some NBA bubble coverage deals, so be sure to stay up to date with that. They've got some great coverage over there. Also want to shout out just briefly Rhiannon Walker, who has a piece for The Athletic that is free, but she is one of the 2 media members who came forward in the Washington Post story about the Washington football team. So if you want to dive into The Athletic and what kind of stories they do, that is a good place to start, in addition to Jason's awesome coverage of the Kings. And we will be back here next week and getting ready for our first actual competitive game that counts in it'll be 20 weeks at that point, since we were all standing together in Golden One Center, waiting to watch Zion take the floor when the whole sporting world came to a grinding halt. So good to have basketball back. It's good to see you, Jason. Hope you and your family are doing well. Hope you're not too sick of your kids being the chef, the dad, the teacher, and all of that. So we will hopefully see you guys next week. Be safe out there, and follow us on Twitter and YouTube.